There we go. Look at that. I'm a professional streamer. I need serious help mentally. Oh man. Okay, but yeah, I'm gonna give a quick rundown of the balance patch. I will be doing a longer video. Probably not this week, maybe next week. We'll see. I think I have enough footage to make an actual YouTube video this week from the stream. Thanks be to God. So maybe I just cut this and upload it to YouTube. We'll see. For as like a bonus video tomorrow. But yeah, this is the January 2026 balance patch. This is the post Worlds balance patch. Essentially, I'm not gonna go over the text. I will just go through which cards are getting nerfed and what ways and the reasoning behind them. So naturally, first off, we have Kangaroo Transport getting hit. Literally just losing the tank text. Everything else is the same cost. Still gives a British infantry blitz and +1 heavy armor. This is, I think, a lot bigger than people think it is. This is, I think, I said it in the video and I've said it multiple times over the last couple of months that Kangaroo Transport is like the card in buffs. This is what gives the deck so much lethality and the ability to kill you from hand so easily. This losing the tank text is massive. No longer will you be able to play buffs on 1, turn 2, play transport plus Bocage Warfare and immediately push a 5/7 heavy armor 1 into the front line and hit for 5. You're going to be doing it on turn 3 instead. That is a sizable difference because what it means is the investment, because buffs cares a lot about how it's spending its credits every turn with buffing the buffs. It means your opponent has to spend even more cards into investing into buffs for the turn 3 hit, which means it's a lot more susceptible to getting hit by suppression and cards like M10, for example, which is a big deal. It means it's going to feel a lot worse when your buffs gets suppressed. And if you're holding stuff, holding buffs back in the buffs deck does not feel good either at the same time. So yeah, this slows down the deck by a couple of turns, which is a big deal. It means no longer are you at risk of dying on turn 3 or turn 4. So yeah, this is a massive hit. Yeah, it says, they even says, so Kangaroo Transport no longer gives the move and attack capabilities of tank, reduces the explosive nature of buffs quite a bit. The ability to deploy buffs and immediately threaten the enemy backline with Kangaroo Transport is now impossible. This is the big thing. It also switches off tactical withdrawal as a means of comboing. Again, removing the ability to just kill your opponent on turn 3 or turn 4. Again, probably the most impactful change to the deck is that tactical withdrawal no longer really does anything. But the unit buffing and chain home plans are still solid, which is true. Frontier Force and chain home is still they're still very good together. It just means you're not at risk of turn 8 Frontier Force, Kangaroo Transport, chain home, move it to the front line, hit you for 12. That's no longer a concern, at least. So I think buffs has been adequately defanged. I still wish that buffs itself was only once per turn, but I mean this is still, I think, the correct hit if they were only looking to change one thing about each of the big decks. Then we have RAF Mustang. I was a bit perplexed by this one earlier on today. This, I think, is more of a preemptive hit than anything else. Hasn't really done much in the metagame. It's been played in the buffs deck, but almost never gets played in the buffs deck. I don't think I've ever seen it come down except for that one game today where it killed me. Yeah, just incredibly efficient damage for credit ratio. We... myself, Jaking, and Bear talked about this at length in previous season that this card was probably going to be the strongest card of the set. I think we were pretty bang on the money. This card is insane. I guess that hefty downside make your British a lot more expensive. However, in practice, downside was often irrelevant because it's so good at closing out games. Just that's making it 4K still a potent threat, not as insane a finisher as it was previously. Yeah, we all knew this was going to hit 4 credits at some point. It was just a question of when. Well, I can't say much. You need to consider the change in the likely aftermath of the other changes. Yeah, exactly. With the metagame slowing down, Brit Air suddenly becomes a lot more viable. And Mustang in Air is obviously, cracked. So, yeah. we knew this was going to happen at some point. We all said this was going to go to 4. It really was just a case of when was it going to go to 4. Second front, this is the one everyone's excited about. No longer, it's losing Bond, which is interesting. So it no longer has Bond, and it can only target German ground units, which means it can no longer target Bretagne, can no longer target the Henschel, can no longer target the FW, the Naval Warfare Burn FW, and it can no longer target things like Kanazawa, which means its only realistic home anymore is Navy Burn. And whether or not Navy Burn is going to be good enough is yet to be seen. Navy Burn in a slower metagame without Bretagne is likely going to go back to being a decent anti-control deck. I just don't know how good it is, and we'll probably see Second Front in that deck, just because it lets you protect your Marine Division for a turn and also double the output of it on the following turn. So we'll likely see some Second Front, but definitely it's going to be nowhere near as an oppressive meta force as it has been, which is good. I wish it had just been... I wish it hadn't been limited to German ground units, so it could still be played with Kanazawa. But I mean, this is fine. It's probably better that it's kept to just German, and it makes sense given that, like, with all the Bond and stuff, they kind of want things to be a bit more insular. But yeah, this is a huge hit to Bretagne. This is basically just saying the exact same thing, essentially. Next up, Marine Division, also getting nerfed, losing shock. Not that it really matters. Can't target Henschel. Can only target German ground units. So you can't target the Henschel, and you cannot target the FW that deals 4. So the only target for this right now is 2nd Marine Division, which is also getting nerfed. Losing shock, which is a-okay. It means it can no longer, like, effectively defend itself super easily. Because a lot of times if you're playing an infantry deck, the shock on Marine Division means if you push into the front line and they have a Marine Division, they're able to freely defend it. Just one credit to take the free trade. Losing shock is a relatively big deal. Just makes it less capable at keeping itself alive and a little bit more reliant on the other German cards in the deck. Yeah, this is a good change. I think Marine Division was, like, shock was so unnecessary on Marine Division to begin with. But this is also a preemptive hit, given that we are losing Bretagne. With Bretagne going, Navy Burn ends up being, like, the best anti-control deck in the game. Particularly with Second Front still working with the deck. So it makes sense to weaken it a little bit ahead of time, just because it has the potential of just slotting into that Bretagne slot. So yeah, this is a good change. Would I have done more? Maybe. Like, does it need to be a 3-6? I don't know. Also, how are you doing, Jose? I hope you're doing well. And also, Sumster, hopefully you're also doing good. Yeah, I'm still not keen on Marine Division as it stands. I do think its stats are a little bit too good for what it does, but it is once per turn, so maybe I'm just being a prude. Who knows? And finally, Shifting Doctrine is also losing intel, which is a phenomenal change. This means that the intel and shuffle package are no longer, like, cohesive, which means there is actual opportunity cost to running Sabe in your deck. Or, like, the shuffle package in your deck. Whereas before, there was no opportunity cost to just slotting in Sabe into your intel deck, because all of your shuffle triggers had intel on them. This makes Shifting Doctrine in the deck a lot worse. This makes Dug-In way worse. This affects Dug-In more so than anything else. Dug-In no longer provides 2 free shuffle triggers, at least, like, with the extra intel payoff. So whether or not this is going to stop Sabe seeing play in Legions, I don't think so. I think you still probably play it, because you still have, like, 10th Recon, you still have some other shuffle triggers that you're, like, okay running. So I don't know if this actually kills Sabe, but it makes it worse. It does make the deck worse. It's also lowering the density of intel for the deck, meaning you're not going to be pumping out nearly as many Legions with your turn-out turns. So overall, this is a good change. This is a healthy change, and it's a change that needed to happen. And it's a change that Bear really, really wanted to happen. So, yeah, that's all the nerfs. Good changes. These are all changes that needed to happen. Kangaroo Transport and Second Front, obviously the big ones. This frees up a ton of metagame space for a bunch of decks. Buffs being incredibly polarizing for aggro and control, and the Protang deck forcing out control decks and mid-range decks. Those two decks leaving means that a ton of space is now open for mid-range and for control and for different forms of aggro. So this is a fantastic change. We might actually get to experience some of what Homefront had to offer that never got to see play. So I'm very excited about these changes. Marine Division is fine. This is just preemptively hitting the burn deck, and this is a fantastic change as well. Stops Legions. Anytime there's like a new set or a balance change, Legions becomes the best deck for a couple of weeks because it's so straightforward to build, and it's just very linear. This is a good change. This means that Legions might just fall off for once and for all, and I won't have to play against Tar now. I'm so tired of Legions. As for the buffs, Polar Bears is gaining an attack, and no longer it triggers the same way all the other Homefront Brit cards do, that if you deploy the British Infantry last turn, just gets +1/+1 rather than getting +1/+1 for each one you have deployed. Doesn't really do anything. I know Bear really likes Polar Bears, but this card is still garbage. it's still absolute garbage. It's still not great, but better. Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit better, but they could have done so much more. It's not helpful. It really isn't. It streamlines it. Yeah, it does. It gives it a little bit more cohesion with the rest of the Brit package they brought out in Homefront. So overall, an unexciting change, but I mean, it's fine. It's a bit of love for an unplayed card. Number 40, Panzer Grenadier, going from a 2/3 to a 3/3. Everything else is staying the same. The problem with this card is the fact it says Bond. If this didn't have Bond on it, it'd actually be playable. Bond makes this card unplayable. So I lost the argument for 2K7701 plays. If they buffed it, I expected it to be +1/+1 for each infantry you deployed or added. Yeah, that was. I think I mentioned that as well in spoiler season. That it should have synergized with them being added, because the garrisons, you add garrisons instead of deploying, and they added more garrison synergy. So I fully in agreement that it should have been deploy or added. Or each, yeah, also wouldn't have been a bad idea. But yeah, 40 Panzer Grenadier, it's still bad. Even 3/3 doesn't save it. It's Bond is what's holding this card back. I experimented with it in the Kanazawa deck previously, and it was fine, but it having Bond is the big issue. It's probably worth testing again, just because with shifting attack and with 74 Panzer Grenadiers, just being able to loop them, just basically having units to loop with Kanazawa is crazy. So it might be worth including again, we'll see. With the metagame slowing down a little bit, maybe Kanazawa can actually do something. Now that we're not going to die on turn 9 consistently to Protang, and we'll have time to actually set up a combo. But yeah, it's better. It's just not much better. I hate their explanation. I don't think I... Oh yeah, I did read that yeah, they didn't want to buff it too much because they don't want it being tier 1. One of the cornerstone cards, but it's not really the cornerstone card is the problem. If they wanted to buff the self-bounce deck, what they should have done is they should have had the Dornier and the Kanazawa and the other units that trigger off things leaving the battlefield trigger off themselves. If the Dornier triggered off itself leaving, it would be actually decent. If Kanazawa triggered off itself leaving, it would have been also decent. If they wanted to help the send to hand or self-bounce archetype, that's what they should have done. This doesn't actually really do anything for the deck as a whole. So yeah, this one I'm not sold on. But I suppose saying they don't want to buff it too much in case the archetype is annoying is yeah, why release something like that at all? Yeah, fair. Real and true. Then we have the M3 Lee. This is going from 4K to 3K, and I actually called this exact buff in spoiler season, which is hilarious. I expected them to buff it to a 3 cost 3-4, so I'm surprised they're keeping the 4-4 stats on this, but I'm happy they are. I know they mentioned the 4 attack matters for this, which I'm glad, because maybe I'll finally get around to playing some US-Italy Trento division stuff with this now, as soon as this does help push everything else in your deck up above 4. So it might be worth experimenting with, but like the only problem is this now adds yet more 3-drops to US's already overcrowded 3-drop slot. So we'll see if it makes the cut. I'm excited to play around with it though. It's much, much better at 3. So yeah, I'm excited to try this one. It reminds me a lot of the German Jagdpanzer from Naval Warfare. So hopefully this one's okay. This is a much more welcome buff than like the 40 Panzer Grenadier. This one does nothing. This one does a lot for the card. Then we have Yorktown going from 6 to 5. This is also a positive change. I still think this card is garbage. I still think it's bad, but the rate is now at least better. It's no longer like on par with the 3 cost one. I can't think of it. Oh, what's it? The actual playable one? The 3 cost spawn 2 Brewsters in the front line. It's not air cover. Is it air cover? It is air cover. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's now technically better on rate than air cover, but it's still 5 credits. It's still bad. But yeah, at least it's no longer like roughly even on rate with air cover. So that's at least an improvement, but I don't know. It's still not good enough to see play. I know we have some believers out there for Yorktown. I know Sonny, I know Red Sun is a Yorktown enjoyer, but yeah, it's still bad. And finally, we have Coastal Battalion 7. It's gaining a single attack. This doesn't matter, I don't think. Loves it. I know he loves Yorktown for some reason. I do not understand the love for Yorktown. Yeah, Coastal Battalion. It does change. It changes one thing. It can no longer be killed by Raiding Brigade, which sometimes relevant with the amount of Japan we see on ladder. So there's at least that going for it now. And like it's got Blitz, and the 3 attack means it can take maybe 1 or 2 extra trades. But I don't know how much it actually affects the card overall. Soviet Soup's already fine without Coastal. Yeah, I think so. Again, like I said, I said it on Discord earlier on today. I think Coastal Battalion is the victim of not enough testing in a very restrictive metagame. I think it's actually a solid card. Like it's unconditional stats is the important thing on everything you deploy. And in Soup, it's decent. It's just I don't know. I think this card needs to be tested a lot more. My initial tests of this card in Heinz were solid, but it was just too slow in the Homeland version of the deck I was playing. Not needed in deck, but better than people think. Yeah, I don't think this is even necessary for Soup. I think you should be looking at this more so through the lens of like, should I be playing this in like US Finland mid-range? Because US has a bunch of random incidental like units with 1 or 2 keywords that this is very, very good with. And US benefits massively from having the access to Lotus Fard, because US really likes having the access to the credit cheating on the operation costs. So I think this. See, people are. I think looking at this through the lens of not Soup, but just the solid mid-range decks is where you need to be thinking. Like Jurfin value. Yeah, exactly. I think the homes people have tested are not quite correct. Yeah, I just think chunky mid-range might be the home for this deck, but time will tell. I am excited to test it out in US Finland. Yeah, Thunderbolt, for example, exactly. M3 Lee also has 2 keywords on it. Yeah, exactly. Like, just giving out +2/+2s to everything you deploy is very, very good. So yeah, I think I think the change doesn't affect it overall, but I am excited to play around with this card a little bit more now that the metagame is going to be shaken up a little bit. And I do want to also point out that 1939 in the official post have referred to it as have referred to the deck as soup. So I am officially responsible for naming an archetype, which is very funny to me. Yeah, 35T having +1/+1 also very good. A 3/3/0 op, and also like the Coastal Battalion also activates the op cost clause on it, which is nice. So can confirm it is also soup and nice. Oh, if nothing else, I have at least impacted the game some way. But yeah, that's all the changes. I am positive on the nerfs. I think these were all well-placed nerfs. I think there's like maybe 1 or 2 changes they could have done as well. Like I said, the once per turn on buffs would have been nice to see. And I think they could have had some more impactful buffs. Overall, like the only one here that really matters or really does anything is Lee. Lee is like the only buffs that really does anything. So get ++. Okay, do you want to die anyway? Yeah, I mean fair. But like everything else doesn't really do anything. So buffs leave a lot to be desired, but the nerfs were very, very good. Wake me up when Persian Corridor gets buffed. There you go, Stumpster. See, Persian Corridor for the professionals, easy. Oh man, yeah. I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they didn't buff anything like professionals. If buffing professionals would have been a huge mistake. But yeah, overall solid changes. Again, just the buffs were a little bit do nothing. So, but yeah, happy enough with the nerfs. But aside from that, I am probably going to end the stream there. I've been going for like 3 hours at this rate, which is usually how long I go for.